What's up, folks? This is Brad Reed, the Gaming Mole here, and instead of trying to come up with updates to talk about in terms of what's going on with the channel, I've actually decided to do a Q&A, generally because there's actually no real updates to talk about from my channel that you haven't already picked up on if you're still watching it. I'm sorry if I sound a little hoarse today. It's been quite a long day and I've talked to a lot of people. Talked to a lot of other people that was like face to face about a lot of stuff. So that's why I sound a little hoarse. But generally this Q&A is based on a lot of the interesting questions I've been asked in the past couple of months about either games or my lifestyle or whatever. If you actually have a question that you want to ask, just leave it in the comments, and if there's enough, I might do a second video of Q&A just to answer those. Anyway, I have reworded these questions a bit. One is for the fact to actually make it rather understandable, because a lot of people, it's not to say that they don't know proper English. It's really the fact that some people are either in different countries or they just have or something to that effect, and it's honestly the internet. So I've reworded the questions for that reason, and I also reworded them because some of the questions, or really things I've been asked, had some of the most disrespectful things you could ever say to a person. It's ever, especially in terms of online. And because of that, I reworded them so that user won't get any backlash if someone's listening and they're like, oh, we should get that user. I hate him, blah, blah, blah. And I've been here for 6-7 years doing this and getting all that random hate and dealing with it ups and downs. So yeah, I reworded them to try and avoid that, retaliation to get to that guy or girl or whoever. Anyway, with that said, I'm going to start with the questions. The first one being, am I ever going to buy Pokemon X and Y? The problem with getting Pokemon X and Y is the fact that I'm saving up for a new desktop. There's a good part of me that wants it because I do want to play a new Pokemon game. Even though there's not that much that interests me in terms of Pokemon in this game. I've seen the new Pokemon, I've seen the Mega Evolutions, and a lot of it it kind of just falls short for me because I was expecting something more. But I have been considering it, but with the whole thing about a new desktop coming or planning to get that, I don't really have it in the budget to go out and buy a 3DS or 2DS with Pokemon X and Y. Plus the fact that if I'm actually to make videos of it, I have to actually go buy a capture card, which is to pay an extra $200-$300 with a 3DS or 2DS for that to happen. And yeah, I have heard that the one guy that originally did it sold out, but I did find another guy who does it and actually has a do-it-yourself kit. But it's generally running about the same price in terms of trying to get one. So it's definitely going to have to wait before I actually make a decision on that. I think that's all for that question. The next one, do you plan on buying an Xbox One and Killer Instinct 3? At this point, like just like the issue with the 3DS, I don't have it in the budget to actually get an Xbox One. And the reason I would get an Xbox One is not exactly for Killer Instinct 3, but it's more for Crimson Dragon. Because I was actually waiting on that game to come out on the 360, but it never did, and it kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And it's probably going to, and I honestly think it's going to go the way of Duke Nukem Forever because of all the pushbacks. But I did want it for that game because I'm like, oh, well, I haven't played a rail shooter in quite a long time. And it's like this one has dragons in it, and it's actually interesting to see. And it's actually interesting from the things that were presented to in the trailers. Well, the one and only trailer I actually watched. As for Killer Instinct 3, I'm not entirely sure yet. There's a lot of things that actually just make me go, like, well, this is an okay game for now. I do want to say, like, but there's not that many characters, and then the characters I would want to play as aren't there, so to speak. I mean, yeah, it's got Saberwolf, it's got Jago, but so far there's only this many characters, and it's like I'm worried about how the online community will accept it and respond, like when people get beat. Because if you notice, like every time when I play online, I'm usually on I generally feel like I'm on the dark side or in the slum area of online community where people will rage quit or people will send you hate messages because you simply beat them. And and they don't know how to overcome that. So I'm not exactly sure about the whole thing just yet. And again, the whole money issues with saving up for a new desktop. Excuse me. Saving up for a new desktop and trying to find the money to actually have the games, because there's no point in buying an Xbox One if you have no games for it. Do you plan on getting a PlayStation 4? About the same thing as the 3DS and the Xbox One. There's no money for it, but to add on to this, there actually isn't any interest for me to say like I want a PS4. And that generally actually runs the same thing with Xbox One. There's not much out there that says like, hey, you should totally buy this system. Because for me, I'm like, okay, well, if I get the system, I want this game, this game, this game, and this game. Like, I want like 5 different games so I have a variety to play with. Variety to play instead of just having one game and being like, okay, well, I beat this game and there's not much else to do on it because everyone's already done everything, and the online community, like all my friends have pretty much left this game for other stuff, etc. Like, I don't want that to happen. So I don't really have a reason to buy a PlayStation 4. What else? What's next on the list? Are you getting BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma? I am rather planning for it. I was planning to get the Japanese version of the game, but when I saw like how much money I had to play with in terms of, again, with the whole desktop issue, I went like, well, crap, I can't exactly go pick up this game because I have to go shell out about $70-$80. And I can't really find anyone to actually go ahead and game share it with me, because I'm like, well, maybe I can find someone that will be willing to game share it with me. And I can just go buy the DLC and that will be that. I actually did, and turns out like almost everyone bought a physical copy because they don't want to shell out the money for PSN for a PSN yen card or PSN bucks. And those that actually are game sharing it have game shared it with everyone else first. And I'm like, well, they're not my friends to begin with, so I don't expect them to share it with me. The next question is, are you getting a Wii U with Smash Bros. 4? Dang, like I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point. Uh, again, the whole issue with the desktop, like that's already like $400 or so down the drain from when I went pricing a new desktop anyway. And I actually did, I did find one that I wanted, but I saw like, okay, well, it's going to cost this much. I need to save up this amount of money first before I go get it. And I did think about doing a pay me later type deal. But actually I went like, okay, well, maybe not, because I don't know, like who knows like what might happen. I might not have the money to pay it, like to completely pay it off. Who know? I don't know. Anyway, next question. It's like I do want to get. Oh, back up a bit. I do want to get a Wii U with Smash Bros. 4 and a couple other games as well, like Wonderful 101. What else was there? Maybe Monster Hunter. I don't know, like, because all my friends kind of generally just left the whole Monster Hunter thing behind for the next Monster Hunter in Japanese, which to me, I'm like, well, eh. I kind of just fell off on the wayside, like, wow, like, they really just left the game for the next one, even though it's not in their language. Like, there's a couple of games I actually do want for the Wii U. It's like, but I was like, again, I have to wait until I actually have money to say, like, okay, I'm gonna go get this now. Could you do a run of games that aren't blind runs? That's about as much sense as I could make for that question. Basically, when I do a new game, it's generally a blind run because I don't like looking up. I don't really like looking up the strategy guide for that game because it's like, one, it ends up spoiling what's going to happen in the game, and while I don't mind spoilers, I end up like too well prepared, like over prepared, really, for what's to come. And I'm like, oh well, that was easier than what the strategy guide said it was going to be. And it generally just robs me of the surprise. Being like, okay, well, this boss was way too easy, and what generally ends up happening at the end is I end up running through the game, and I'm like, wow, like this game was way too easy. It's not as hard as people originally said it was. It's like I don't see what their problem is. So I end up having that kind of attitude about it. As that's why I generally favor blind runs as opposed to games that I know how to play. Because generally when I know how to play, like the only surprise is when something that I usually do all the time just suddenly doesn't work. And I'm like, wow, like that didn't work. Like, huh. Like usually that works every time. But so generally I'm like it's like when I can, I always prefer to stick to blind runs as opposed to ones that aren't blind. And the interesting thing I've heard about blind runs is like a couple of people said like I've never seen a blind run of a game that isn't commentated. I was like I've been around for quite a long time on YouTube, and I was like I realized like that may be the trend now, but I'm not sticking to that trend. I was like I prefer doing blind runs that aren't commentary because there's like nothing to really talk about in terms of the game. Like you can just go like most people will just say like, oh well that's stupid, or that it's like, oh like that was cool or whatever. And then they'll just jump on something else. Like it's not anything that's actually like to me when I see people like do commentary over stuff they never played before, I'm like, wow, like really? That's what you think of it? Like maybe if you noticed this first, and I want to say that to the person, but I know I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to say it to him because it's obviously his first time playing the game. It's like I feel like people should get that when people aren't doing commentary. Because there's really no point in that regard. What's the next question? Are you going to do Skylanders Swap Force commentary gameplay with your sister? That's actually become quite hard to do, and I've only been able to do a live stream commentary with her on and off. And that's generally because she's actually going to college. So she's actually been away from home, and usually when it's like while she doesn't live at a dorm or anything, the issue is like the moment she comes home from both like her side job and from school, like she's dead tired and doesn't feel like doing anything. So she just pretty much goes straight to sleep. And I don't really like doing commentary on my own. So it's actually quite difficult for me to actually be like, okay, well, I'm going to do commentary over this. And this is how it's going to sound, because even if I like take down notes about what to say, it never actually happens. Like it never actually goes the way I want it to do. Could you use this song in this next boss fight video or whatever when you record this next? I can, but you have to ask me like well in advance. Like if you find out that I just started playing the game, like then you should let me know at that point, because otherwise I'll get it too late, and then the music that you want it used for is going to get missed. Like the boss fight that you want that music for, it's going to get totally missed because I already have it recorded, and I don't like going back and redoing it over again. Even more so, like I only really create like 1 or 2 save files of that game. Generally only 1, because I don't like taking up save slots of like all this other crap. Be like, okay, well, now that I know what this boss fight is, I'm going to redo it and make it perfect. Like, I'm not a perfectionist in that regard. Okay. Why won't you do commentary over this game? Aside from the video I created a long time ago about why I hate doing commentary, it's generally because I don't feel I should. Like, I think that everything about the game has been said. It's like everything about that game has been said, and just to get to know the thoughts of one person about the game, like I think like you can share that in the chat room or message board or over Skype or something like that. I don't think it's like I personally don't think like you need to go. Like I personally don't think like you need to play through the game and be like, oh, and just talk over it, saying like, oh, like this is so, like this is awesome, this is super cool. And generally, I only done commentary over stuff like Skylanders because I felt like, okay, well, this is a test commentary, and if people want it, then people will say so. Or they'll tell me like, hey, do commentary over this game with such and such. And I really hate doing commentary on my own. Because I was like, I'll generally get quiet, and I'll be like, okay, well, there's nothing to talk about. It's like, there's nothing to talk about over this, and I'll generally only laugh at parts that are funny. Like, I won't exactly make conversation. Like, and even over stream, I don't make much conversation because the conversation's already in the chat about something that's completely unrelated to the game. Like Pokemon or something. Like Pokemon or some random anime or something that just like, I'm just like, whatever, over. Why won't you do a donation stream? It's like, why don't you do a donation stream to get your money? It's like, I have money I want to give to you. While that is a great thought, and I do thank you for being so dedicated that you want to give money to me. Since the last time I did a donation stream, I don't really feel that great about it. It's been like, one, like the whole thing about donations is pretty much gone. Like, pretty much at this point in time, like, it's pretty much gone in terms of people willing to give out money for whatever cause. Like, one, there's Kickstarter, and Kickstarter, they give things back, and it's like, in a lot of cases, I don't really have much to give back to you. Like, I have, like, various strategy guides I can give, but nobody wants those. And I have, like strategy guides, art books, and stuff like that. But I'm like, well, like, there's no point in giving them out, because it's like, that's just giving them money, like, giving them something probably less value for the amount of money I give. While I do have it open, I don't really expect money to be thrown into my PayPal account instantly just because I'm playing video games. So at this point, I feel like, okay, well, I should just work for it. I mean, if you really want to throw your money out for someone playing video games, like, I'm not going to stop you. But I'm not exactly on board with doing something for, like, getting money for something anybody can, like, doing money for something that generally anybody can do. Yeah, it's like, you can say that the YouTube thing is about the same, but it's really not, because that's advertising someone else's product by using my popularity, and I'm only getting paid for it because they're using my videos. Like, that's really the only reason. And that's from an actual company. Like, that's not from a person that's just willing to throw away money. It's like, but if you really want to give your money, like, I'm not going to stop you. I will thank you, but I won't. It's like, I'm not going to stop you from doing it. Because I know people that will still do donation streams and get money to, like, be like, oh, I have to pay the bills, and if I don't pay these bills, then I can't give you great content that you guys love so much. Stuff like that. Ooh, my voice is about to run out, and I'm on these, and these last two questions are really going to get some serious conversation. Okay. Next question. I can't believe I'm entertaining this. Why won't you accept that Kira Yamato's actions in Gundam Seed and Gundam Seed Destiny are complete and utter BS compared to the other Gundam series and Gundam characters? The rest of the message was removed due to rather inappropriate and unclear words. This is actually quite a funny one, and they're referring back to why and really I believe this is referring back to why I hate this character instead of this character who deserves all the hate. But to try and generalize the answer and not go on a super tirade, like one, it's anime. Generally anime, or really I should say fictional writing, this stuff happens all the time. Like you can't I can't just excuse I can't just be like, okay, well, this character's actions were complete and utter bullcrap because he did it like this many times, or he had no explanation behind it, or the explanation is complete crap. Like that's just how fictional writing goes. Like it shows like this character shows one character or more doing the complete impossible, and then they throw around an explanation saying like, oh well, this is why it happened. It's like honestly if I had to go ahead and be like, oh well, this is complete. If I had to go and say like one character's actions were complete and other BS, I have to say like every character's actions are complete and utter BS, and they're all on the same level. Like no character is greater than any other, especially in various series. And Gundam, it's like in Gundam stuff, in terms of how much quote unquote BS there is, like it's nothing compared to stuff like Akira, Ninja Scroll. What else is there? Gatekeepers 21, Better Man. It's nothing compared to like stuff like that. Even Ghost in the Shell has complete another BS. But yeah, it's like if I couldn't excuse one character, then I'd be unable to excuse another character's bullcrap. And generally, I think like if you really have a problem with that one character's BS, I think like honestly you should just like either write a fan fiction, or it's like, and this is not to be insulting, like just go write a fan fiction or or just write your own story and share it with other people. It's like because there's nothing wrong with it, and plus with the explanation of plot holes, it actually leaves room to get some of the most imaginative and pretty great explanations as to what actually happened. It's like I've actually heard a lot. I've actually heard a lot of things, a lot of explanations about some of the bull crap, and I'm like, wow, like that is interesting and seriously creative. As compared, it's like, and really, that's not one thing that is like, and it's not something that actually pisses me off. Like, if I was to say that anything that actually bothers me just even slightly, it's the explanations of like, oh, I planned this from the very beginning. Or, hey, like, I was able to pull this off due to time travel. Oh, voice is almost gone. The last question. Why won't you play M-rated games? Like, my decision to play M-rated games is from a long time ago, and it's actually due to a ton of reasons. But the main two was generally because the friends I hang out with, and from what I was actually seeing in terms of M-rated games. Because I used to play like a ton of M-rated games, and not just Halo, not just Call of Duty. Like I used to play a ton of it, and I'd be like, oh well, I'm like, oh well, like never even be bothered by it. But one thing that changed was the whole it just seems like the graphics have to be so up to date that it's totally it turns into like the next best thing to real. And I'm like, wow, like that looked way too brutal, and I just can't imagine myself playing that game, especially with the whole, with the nightmare-inducing or disturbing images I see. I'm like, wow, like I don't really want to see that. I see that enough on the news and other shows all the time. Like I don't really need to see it in my video games. There's also the reason, like going back to my friends, like when I was playing M-rated games, like it's like my attitude towards my friends or really anybody was pretty much on the lines of like some of the most hated people of the internet. Like I guess who's like I don't even know who's hated anymore. But I totally like hated all, like I was totally like, okay, well this person is stupid, and I would just call it, and I would just call them out, and I would just think like to do violent things to that person because they said something stupid, and I'm like, oh, like they said something stupid to me, or they said something stupid about my friends, and be like, okay, well I want to hurt, like I want to choke, like okay, well I want to choke this person really badly, or I want to take, or I want to like go. Or I want to go beat this person up and be like, or I just want, or something to that effect. And while people, it's like, and while you might, like, while people argue, like, oh, well, M-rated games don't do that. I'm not necessarily saying that it was just M-rated games in general that did that to me, because there's a lot of other factors. But I started with like, okay, well. It's like when a friend actually confronted me about it, he's like, hey man, like it's like, hey man, think about what you're doing. Like you're being a total dick to the wrong people. Like he actually sat me down, he actually sat me down and he's like, look, like just listen for a minute and like, hey, like you're being a dick towards all these people. And it's not right to be that way towards people. Because like what, and it's going to come back to bite. It's going to come back to bite you in the future. If you don't, it's like if you don't change your ways. It's not karma. It's just you're treating people how you want to be treated. Generally I actually started noticing that. Like okay, well my attitude is attracting these people towards me. It's like my hateful attitude is attracting a lot of hateful people towards me. So I need to try and stop that and try and do my best to change that. And then I realized like a lot of things that were going on was generally like when I was playing an M-rated game, I would just get super angry because I couldn't get through the level or because like something stupid happened. And I would actually hurt other people because of I saw something cool on this game or whatever, and be like, oh, I was just playing. You know, like, man, it's like when I honestly realized that, I was like, okay, well, I should stop. I was like, I need to cut down and pretty much stop because these things are getting much, much worse, and I just can't stand playing them anymore if it's going to change me in such a bad way and towards the point where I'm losing friends and gaining all the wrong ones. And that's not to say that that's not towards my current friends saying like, oh, well, you're all the wrong people to hang out with. It's like, but it's actually started making me think like, okay, well, since I having this attitude and I'm attracting these people as friends, maybe I should start playing other games instead so I don't attract those people to try and be my friend and whatnot. So what ended up happening is I just generally stopped playing M-rated games and stopped doing other things as well. It pissed a couple of people off, but honestly those people were the wrong people to hang out with in the first place. The only thing is when I explain this to certain people, when they don't get it, there's like nothing. It's like when they don't get it, it's just like whatever. Like honestly, it's just like, well, I'm not trying to change you. It's like I'm changing me. It's like if it's like it's just like hanging out with a vegetarian, honestly. Like just because that person is a vegetarian doesn't mean that you have to be one. It's like just respect that that person's a vegetarian and then go and then just go on with your life. Like they're still the same person. And that's how I feel about the whole thing. Anyway, that's about it for my Q&A. If you have any other questions, uh, my voice is about to run. My voice is really running out. Oh, if you have any other questions, leave them in the comment box. I can't believe this went on for about 35 minutes, but I'm glad. But I guess I'm rather glad this got done. Like, leave them in the comment box, and if there's enough, I'll do a second Q&A later on, addressing those questions. Or I might just like do a live stream and just look up all the questions I got and answer them there. That said, this is Brad Reed of Gaming Mole signing off.